Hey there guys, how we doing? Today we're going to look a little bit into leatherworking, just a first quick look. And the first thing I do really want to say with leatherworking is currently on the beta it still feels really broken. The main core things are there with leatherworking, but one thing that seems way out of whack is the material costs, but we'll look into that in a little bit detail in a second. Firstly, let's just look over the main things you're going to get as a leatherworker. Cool new thing that you're going to get back, if you see here, is the armor kits. We've not seen these for a couple of expansions. For these, if you don't know, they're very simply a 2-hour use that's going to boost the stamina on a piece of gear. As you can see here, increase the stamina of an item on the chest, legs, hands or feet by 24 for 2 hours. There is also a heavy version of this where the material costs are greatly increased, but it will then also buff from 24 up to 48 for 2 hours. The thing to note with these is you've actually got the ability to equip 4 of them at once, meaning that people are going to want to buy these in large quantities, probably more than just a stack of 20 sort of thing, because people are going to churn through these quite quickly. The thing to note is it doesn't appear so far that they persist through death, so for Mythic Pluses, for Raiders, they're going to be applying these in quite large quantities if they're really on that min-max system. A few other things you get with here, you've got the crafter's marks like you have with a lot of the other professions. As it stands on the beta now, we only see in the professions 3 versions of the crafter's marks. These literally yesterday got tweaked and tuned a little bit in terms of the values of them. In essence, what they do is they allow you to craft an item of gear, but it allow you to specify what level requirement and what power that bit of gear is. The higher the crafter's mark, the higher the item level, the higher the level requirement. If you've watched any of my previous quick views, you'll see that there was a crafter's mark 3 and a crafter's mark 4. As it stands currently, those appear to have been pulled out of the game. They're probably going to likely come in say patch 9.1, patch 9.2. It's a way to continue crafting with your professions and making them relevant. Drums are back for leatherworkers. Drums are back. It's nice to see these. Significant difference with these drums though, the default heroism or bloodlust or even time warp buff is 25%. You'll notice these drums only increase the haste by 15%. So these are not quite as good as actually having the class that can have that effect as normal, but 15% is better than 0. So if you don't have that mage, that hunter, that shaman in your group, get yourself some drums, get the drums on the auction house. These are still going to be quite a hot seller. Now, what I would like to really sort of emphasize and to really expand on my theory that leatherworking is a little bit broken still is when you look at the material requirements for the leather and the mail armor. They seem to be completely out of whack compared to the other professions, namely tailoring and blacksmithing. So if we look at leather, for example, the leather seems quite normal. To make the chest piece, to make the legs, to make the shoulders, whatever, you've got a small quantity of the default leather, in this case Desolate leather, and then some thread. No issues there, not a problem at all. When you look at the mail, you have the similar quantities of lead, but then you're also adding these pallid bones. Pallid bone we can assume to be the sort of the thing that strengthens the gear, should we say. So that's, you're going to have your basic leather and then you put some bone on it and it turns it into a mail piece. That's sort of makes sense. Where things go really out of whack though is if you look at the material list, you have these heavy Desolate leathers which require 10 regular leathers to craft, and then even worse you have heavy Desolate hide. Now Desolate hide appears to be the rare version of Desolate leather. To link it back to say tailoring, you've got your Tide Spray linen currently in Battle for Azeroth, and then you have your Deep Sea Satin, which is the rare version of. We believe that Desolate hide is going to be the rare version of, but then not only can you take the rare version, you can then make it even rarer, creating this heavy Desolate hide. And where things get really out of whack is when you start looking at the crafted legendary items. For any of the other professions, namely tailoring and blacksmithing, you need roughly 100 of the regular crafting material and then 25 of the rare version of it. If you see here though, you've got enchanted heavy Desolate hide. So if you do the quick maths on that, this is actually the equivalent to get 25 of these. You actually need 200 and 50 Desolate hide, to then craft 25 heavy ones, to then give them to an enchanter, to then have... It's crazy. It's basically 10 times the material cost, and considering it's based on a rare item in the first place, crafting a single legendary, getting yourself 25 enchanted heavy Desolate hides, if you want to go out and farm the Desolate hide yourself, good luck, Leatherworkers, as it stands at the moment. Your time investment to craft legendaries, and equally the cost involved if you want to buy the materials off the auction house, is ridiculous. Blizzard really need to step in and do some tweaks here. The easiest thing to do is just to get rid of these heavy versions, in my opinion. Get shot of those, and then I think the profession sort of balances itself out quite nicely. But simply put, guys, leatherworking, the core foundation is there, but the values are a little bit out of whack. If we get some tuning in, some tweaking, it might be a good profession to pick up. Ultimately, leatherworking, if it's balanced nicely, is a really, really good profession for gold making, simply for the fact that you get 2 sets of armor to craft. It's basically twice as valuable to you as, say, tailoring or blacksmithing. Tailoring's in a real bad spot at the moment. It's got literally no flavour to it at all. Blacksmithing has the advantage and the ability to make more gold because it has the greater quantity of weapons to craft, but of course, as you can see with leatherworking, you also have some weapons you can craft also. So if they get the balancing right and doing some tuning on the materials, leatherworking is going to be a good one. But that's about all we can say for leatherworking right now, guys. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Glad it was, or at least I hope it was helpful for you. And subscribe if you're new around here. I've been Manthius, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.